In the 1920s, on a farm just outside Sutherland in the Northern Cape, a farmer and his son dug up the skeletal remains of 7 of their workers' graves. The farmer's son was a medical student at the University of Cape Town, and he donated the 7 skeletons he found to the university's collection. In the following years, he donated 2 more. About 100 years later, while doing an archiving audit on UCT's skeletal collection, Dr. Victoria Gibbon discovered this gross injustice. The skeletons had been unethically obtained.
At the university, human remains are used for teaching and research, mainly for training medical doctors, and have come to the university under permit. So what was unique about these 9, it was obvious that they had been removed from a farm where they had been laid to rest, and there was a lot of information about these individuals, which is unusual for us.
Removing bodies from their burial sites is akin to grave robbing, and even though this was 100 years later, UCT initiated a process of making amends. The skeletons needed to be reburied near their family. One of the most important tasks the team had was locating the scene of the crime, the burial sites, which had almost disappeared in this harsh, dry landscape. It was archaeologist Professor Simon Hall who found the burial sites a few meters away from the family's own graveyard.
And he saw on the gravestone doctor. And so I went into the UCT archives and I found that 𝗀𝗃𝗍𝗆 was a registered medical student.
The 9 were revealed as Cornelius Abrahams, Klaas Stuurman, 𝗀𝗍𝗆cie, 𝗀𝗁𝗍𝗆cie, 𝗀𝗃𝗍𝗆cie, 𝗀𝗁𝗍𝗆cie, and 3 who were unknown.
We were always interested in our family tree, and we were also always bothered with some questions. Where were some of our relatives? My mother informed us about a farm that they used to visit at the end of every year to, visit some relatives. And that all of a sudden just disappeared, and they never understood that quite what happened.
Anthony Mittas is a descendant of Klaas Stuurman. It was in September last year at a meeting called by UCT that he and the other descendants heard what had taken place. What was your reaction?
I think it was a roller coaster of emotions, if I can. It was shock to think that a relative of yours has been lying somewhere for so many years.
Dr. Victoria Gibbon came here to Sutherland to meet up with the families of the 9 individuals. It was important that the next steps taken by UCT would be the decision of the families involved.
I was scared and I was nervous. I actually anticipated anger. But what happened was we met these wonderful people who were just so curious about knowing more.
What questions were they asking?
In particular, they were really interested in how they died. Who were these 9 people? So they wanted to know more about the history.
Immediately when we started having the conversations amongst ourselves as family members, we realized this is much, much bigger than just the Stuurman and Abrams family. This is about capturing a history that has never been written in Sutherland. We wanted to be able to connect to a face.
For Anthony's uncle, Alfred Stuurman, it was seeing the disturbed graves that brought it all home.
The day when we come here, I check out the spot. First I was shocked. It doesn't even look like a cemetery.
Were you angry that the remains were just taken?
Yes, I was angry because there's only the bones. But the bones, they need respect.
Back in Cape Town, Victoria put a team together to answer the questions the descendants had, ranging from their history, their DNA, and what their ancestors actually looked like.
That piqued my interest because not only was it the opportunity to work on 8 faces at once, but even more unusual was the knowledge that I had a responsibility to descendant families.
Visual artist Catherine Smith is pursuing a PhD in forensic art at John Moores University in Liverpool.
Data sets for Khoisan people don't exist in the way that they do for other population groups, for example. So it involved quite a lot of research around the subjects.
UCT's medical imaging specialist, Dr. Tinashe Muchangwa, was responsible for getting the skeletons in virtual form, which he would then digitally send to Catherine in the UK.
In order to be able to get this virtual form, we had to actually place the skeletal remains in a CT machine, which works much the same as X-ray, except it gives you a 3D rendition of the object. So each one of those skeletal remains at the end of our process was a 3D model, which became the template for the facial reconstruction.
He produced the most beautiful 3D models and shared those with me, which I could take straight into our virtual sculpture system.
Reconstructing the facial anatomy, Catherine starts with the muscles.
And then we've got a whole set of different feature prediction methods that allow us to accurately predict the shape of a nose, the mouth. The ears get more tricky because your ears are biometric, so they are like your fingerprints. We know that we're very accurate within 2 millimeters of the facial surface for 70% of the whole face. But that doesn't reproduce a relatable face. It produces a face model.
And because this is a facial reconstruction for relatives of the deceased and not for forensic work, relatability is vital.
Although the introduction of emotion into images like this is very controversial, in archaeological work like this, there's a little bit more freedom because those images have a slightly different job to do.
In October this year, the UCT team went to Sutherland to reveal their investigative research.
This was going to be my first encounter with the families, and I was anxious, but I was also excited, and I just hoped to hell that they liked them. Both the kids are beautiful.
To be able to put all that data into a face. I have a picture here of 𝗀𝗲𝗃𝗍𝗔.
There was an immediate response. There was an immediate connection. They said they didn't expect them to look like someone they could meet in the street.
Here is a man looking back at me.
Who tells a story on its own. Wow. And so does the pictures of each one of these individuals tell a story.
If I look to the photos, I see myself.
Do you?
Yes. All my family members say, no, I'm looking like that, and I'm looking at a small one.
Anna de Veer is a descendant of Cornelius Abrams.
Wat het oma Anna nou gevoel toe oma Anna vir die eerste keer die foto sien?
Nee, ek het sommer gesien as die Abrams, ek het baie bly gevoel in my hart dat dit nou uitgekom en dat ek nou sien dis nou van die Abramse, my oom.
And just by holding up that picture, I can share with you the story about 𝗀𝗲𝗃𝗍𝗃. He was one of them that met an untimely death. Fortunately, the scientist tells us that it would have been a quick death. But the historian tells us that it was at a time when there was war between the San people and the Khoi people and the colonialists. It's a sad reflection, but it's a story worth telling.
The next step is really the reburial. So we're working to do some kind of memorial, and it might not be about these 9 people, but rather that these 9 people have provided us with a window about the lost history or the history that's not being spoken about at this time. I didn't intend for this project to take me on a personal journey, and I think we do this work every day, but we don't very often have an opportunity to do what we do every day for the benefit of a community.
And for these descendants, it's an ongoing journey, knowing that they belong to this area of the Karoo. Their children have a place here and their history preserved.
We have an opportunity to write history. So this is much, much bigger, and the impact is much, much broader. And we want to share that to the benefit of our grandchildren, to understand where they are coming from. We're talking about a history that was never written up.